Welcome back to the Fenway Focus. This is episode 54 of the Fenway Focus. My name is Jason, and as always, I'm here with Derek to break down the last week of the Red Sox, where the Red Sox, I think, like I said this past episode, would go 5-2. And they did. However, it didn't really feel like that in my opinion. It wasn't a feel good 5-2. It was more of you got there, sure, cool. A win's a win, I guess. Wins are wins, but at the end of the day, it was kind of ugly for some of the games. So enough banter from me. I'll pass it on to you, Derek. How you doing? And what are your first or instant reactions to this week of play?
I think it's interesting, right? They, it's a weird one because, like you said, they went 5-2, but you look at this past week, and I mean that Rays series. Yes, they won 2 out of 3, but that first game felt like two losses in one almost somehow. Like you lose 16-1, and it's not great, and then they win 7-4. Then they have the 1-0 game, right? Obviously they went 3-1 against the White Sox. So thankfully they salvaged the season series against the White Sox, but going 4-3 against the White Sox is not an ideal thing. So that's kind of it's not great, but it could be worse. I think kind of the gist of this week was just kind of, I don't know, felt somewhat underwhelming in some ways. I hear what you said on that. I'm with you. But yeah, kind of underwhelming. Could be better, could be worse. But at the end of the day, they still went 5-2. So you can't complain that much. I mean, yeah, you can nitpick, but like you said, a win's a win. And if this is a Red Sox team that wants to win a World Series, when you get to the postseason, all that matters is whether or not you win the game or you lose the game, whether or not you win the series, lose the series, whether or not you win the World Series or not, right? And you take it any way you can get it. So, yeah, a little bit of an ugly week. The Red Sox still have some things they need to clean up. But outside of, outside of last week, they have been a good team. They had a bad week, and they had a bad 8 days, right? From that Blue Jays series, the first White Sox series, and then the first game against Tampa. But they've now won 5 of their last 6. And now they're playing Seattle and Cleveland, 2 teams who are going to be very interesting this year, right? So the Red Sox, like I said, outside of that 8-day stretch, have been a good team. It's just they still have things they need to clean up, and I think you would agree with that.
100%. And going back to that 16-1 loss, like it just goes to show how one game would really demoralize a season, like a series, right? Like they still won the series against Tampa, right? It's just the path they did it was ugly. Houck had probably his worst start. Oh, no, he did have the worst start of his career and the worst start in like Red Sox recent history. I think some of them also you can, like on paper, there have been much worse losses where it's like you need a win and they completely, crap the bed. But game 2 they won 7-4. Kind of stupid at the end too. They were up 7-2 in the ninth, and then the Wednesday game where they won 1-0. Some of those nitty gritty wins are very crucial. Like Sean Newcomb started in a game you won 1-0. What else do you want from Sean Newcomb, right? And we have to start having conversations on who's next, like who's gonna get sent down or DFA'd for Bayo, who's making his first start tomorrow, Tuesday. So I think also, 1-0 back to that game real quick. David Hamilton had a unicorn home run. That was the only run of the game. So, like I said, it felt really bad on Monday. But the fact that they could get those 2 wins shows, sure, we have to put this loss behind us and keep going. Sure, that's good. The one thing that really stands out to me, though, is just the defense is still so bad. because I'm gonna go game by game. They made one error on the first game of the Rays series. No errors on the second game. No errors on the third game. But on Friday they made two. Saturday they made one. Yesterday they made one. And then today Duran had dropped the fly ball. So the defense needs to be is still an issue on this team, and I'm still very, very worried about it down the stretch. Was weather a big factor early on? Sure. But at the same time, and catcher's interference, sure. But at the same time, you got to look at it. If you're a really good team, if you want, playoff ambitions, you cannot be playing sloppy baseball. This isn't their sloppiest stretch of baseball, but it's something that you need to still keep an eye out on, and I think something that you need to look for as you go on. Do you have any comment on that, Derek? And they still lead the league in errors. Like, it's bad.
Yeah, it's bad. But like the good here's the good thing though. A lot of the errors are things that can be cleaned up, right? I think that's kind of like that's the good thing, right? A lot of it can be cleaned up, can be fixed, right? And that's kind of the big thing, right, with this team right now is yeah, is the, like is the team, are the errors good? No, absolutely not, right? But at the same time, you also can look at it and be like, yeah, the errors aren't good, but though they're fixable, right? Or at least you would hope they're fixable if you're looking at it from a kind of perspective where, the team is not playing at their best right now, but they still found a way to go 5-2 this week. I think that's a big thing. You look at the American League right now. The American League is just a kind of a crap show right now, in all honesty. The Red Sox have a chance to legitimately be a contender in this. The Yankees have gone 7-3 in their last 10, and put a tiny little bit, but there's only 2 games ahead, and it's early in the season, right? Cleveland's gone 7-3 in their last 10. Seattle's gone 8-2 in their last 10. Those are the next 2 teams you're playing, Seattle and then Cleveland. So those are going to be somewhat tests for the Red Sox because Seattle just 10 games ago, instead of being 12-10 now, they were 4-8, right? Cleveland has gone 7-3 in their last 10, instead of being 12-9, and now they were 6-5, 5-6, right? So all it takes for the Red Sox is a good 10-game stretch, and instead of being 13-11, they very well could be 20-14, right, or something like that. I think that's kind of the key right now for the Red Sox. They are going to need to get on a good run soon and start playing like a good team. Yes, if you want to look at things like run differential, which is kind of pointless anyways, because the Rays are last place in the AL East with a +8 run differential, especially because it's early in the season and they have the outlier game against the Red Sox. Yeah, the Red Sox have a negative run differential, but the Red Sox have an outlier game kind of both ways, but still, the point still stands. Like, it doesn't really matter that much, especially small sample size, but my biggest concern as of right now, the Red Sox have played 8 games against teams over 500. They're 2-6 in those games. That's going to have to improve. Yes, it's early in the season, so that's that you have to take it somewhat with a grain of salt, but it's still not good, right? As the season goes on, the Red Sox are going to play a lot of good teams. Like I said, this week they're playing Seattle and then Cleveland. Those are 2 teams that are also going to be vying for postseason spots that the Red Sox need to beat. So they're.
And it's going to be important too.
It goes back to the point of their problems seem to be fixable, but they need to be fixed. They can't just linger around these problems and have them continue. They do have to have they need to fix these problems. The defensive issues. They need to figure out what's going on with Tanner Houck, right? And I'm sure we'll talk about that soon at some point as well. But these are things they have to figure out, right? Buehler had a really nice start today. That's a very good step in the right direction. I thought he had a decent start against the Rays. Went 5, only gave up 2 runs. Like, that's a decent start, and then had a really good start today. So on Patriots Day. So I'm not that worried about Buehler right now. Sean Newcomb is, surprisingly probably been the second best starter, at least that's healthy, because Fitz went down with the injury with the they called it a strained pec, I think. But like, so at this point though, I know you did say they're going to get rid of someone for Bayo. I think that's probably going to be Josh Winkowski, in all honesty. That would probably make the most sense in my opinion. But even then, Giolito eventually is going to be coming back. That's another one too. Carter Crawford seems to maybe potentially be starting to turn a corner. Maybe. We'll see. But there's going to be a lot of moving parts, I think, with this team soon. And if they start getting starting pitchers healthy and Tanner Houck's still struggling, maybe it's one of those phantom, but we really need to fix something IL stints. That has to be a possibility too at some point. Because really the second half of last year, Houck wasn't the same pitcher. He wasn't bad, but he wasn't great.
But he also wasn't this bad either.
But yes, he wasn't this bad, right? So that is something. But like I said, I feel like the problems for this team are fixable. You have Garrett Crochet being what you wanted when you traded for him and when you signed him to that extension. That's what they want out of Garrett Crochet. He's been that ace, right? Sean Newcomb has been very, very, very good, considering he was a non-roster invite. Like, he has been more than serviceable. So shout out to Sean Newcomb. Richard Fitz looked great, right? Buehler really looks like he's turning a corner. And I think Houck is fixable, right? The defense, that should be fixable. Bregman won a Gold Glove last year. Story's a Gold Glove caliber shortstop. Duran was in the Gold Glove conversation last year. William Brady won a Gold Glove last year. Cedar Rafaela is a Gold Glove center fielder, right? Christian Campbell, he's going to have some growing pains at second base, but he's not like miserable defensively. I know Casas has gotten off to a rough start, but Tristan Casas, I know defensively too, it's not hasn't been the greatest of starts for him, but we also know Casas is a slow starter. It's been the story of his career. Every single year, regardless of the level, he's always been a slow starter. This has been a little bit more of an extended slow start, but I'm not as concerned, especially considering he kind of came off the injury last year. He might have had a little bit of a different off season maybe than what he would have if he was totally healthy. Although yes, he did come back in September, but there were always kind of seemed like there might have been questions about whether he was 100% or not. So we'll see how. But like I said, I think a lot of these problems are fixable. Carlos Narvaez, I know he hasn't been the greatest at the plate, but it seems like the behind the plate he has been rock solid, which is a change of pace considering Blake Sable and his 2 catchers interferences. And Connor Wong wasn't terrible this year, but it was a small sample size. We had all the talk we had about Connor Wong last year defensively behind the plate, right? So it'll be interesting to see how once this team really kind of settles into a groove and starts to play well, because let's be honest, if these small, they are in the grand scheme of things, they're small problems. Some of the defensive errors are very they're fixable, right? Maybe get a couple of their pitchers on track, and they're and you start looking at it, and this Red Sox team has the chance to be really, really, really good. But at the end, but those fixes do need to happen as well. It can't just be something where it sits and waits around, and then before you know it, it's July, and this team is underperforming because they have all these issues, right? These problems do need to be fixed.
Right. And is it good that it's happening in April? Yes and no, because you can't really, there's a saying, you can't win a World Series in April, but you can certainly lose it. And that goes through May too. So getting these games are important. But you nailed it on the head. They have issues, but a lot of them are slight issues. Except I think the defense is actually more of an issue than you put it out to be, but agree to disagree there. But
Well, when I say what I mean is more so that it's an issue, but it's fixable, right? It's something that can't, like they have the
I hope it's
personnel to.
fixable.
Well, it should be fixable with the personnel they have, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, you can't be, but you can't be making 5 errors against the White Sox. Like that has to be fixed. And I kind of want to transition to the injury side of things because I think that's interesting. Like, well, when I say injury side, like Houck, we need to talk about Houck because I think there have been, yeah, he did have a quality start against the White Sox yesterday, but like still 7 strikeouts, whatever, 6 innings pitched, 2 earned runs. Yeah, but he's getting hit hard. And I mean, you pointed it out, Derek, like he's not missing as many bats as he was a year ago. Like Amon Savant. Last year, it wasn't all red, but like a lot of like his chase percentage, 78th percentile last season. In 2025, 50. It's not great. Hard hit percentage last year is still down. Barrel percentage last year 82, 2025 56. Not great. What's another one? Walk percentage last year 73. This season 39. So he's kind of struggling with commanding the zone, which yeah, but I think
He's struggling with command in general. In general,
yeah.
he's struggling with command.
Oh yeah. How much of it is because Wong is gone? Probably not much because he was struggling even with Wong. I don't think he was. Yeah. Uh, it's not good, and something needs to change. I don't know if it's a him issue. I don't know if hitters are starting to figure him out. But you did say, Derek, last season he was. Last season he was. At the end he wasn't the same pitcher. He had pitched to a 3.12 ERA, but he was gassed down the stretch, it looked like, because he never pitched that many innings in his major league career. 30 starts.
Also of note for Tanner Houck, take a guess what catcher Tanner Houck pitched the best with last year.
Reese McGuire.
Reese McGuire. To be fair, Wong caught him for 19 games, right? And that was a 3.30 ERA. That's not bad, but in 8 games with Reese McGuire behind the plate, Houck had a 1.82 ERA. With Danny Jansen in those 3 games, he had a 5.09 ERA. There's some of that maybe, late season he did start to struggle. Yeah, but still, like, maybe losing Reese McGuire could have potentially affected Connor Wong, and so could have affected Tanner Houck in some way, shape, or form. Considering that, because up until the trade deadline, Houck made 21 starts, so 8 of them were with Reese McGuire behind the plate, and that would be 13 of them. No, yeah, 13 of them with Wong, and at that point he had a 2.79 ERA. And so a 1.82 ERA with Reese McGuire, you're probably still around a 3 ERA with Connor Wong behind the plate, if you're kind of trying to do a little bit of math in my head, right? So maybe that could have been something. Maybe he just worked really well with, Reese McGuire. I don't know. We've seen it in the past where pitchers have a catcher that they now not like a. We've seen it in the past where like the elite of the elite pitcher might have a catcher that they just work really well with. And that's the catcher that, they have every single time, they pitch. Like
Right.
that very well could be something with Houck where, like last year, Jake Rogers caught every single start made by Tariq Skubal, right? Every single start Tariq Skubal made, it was caught by Jake Rogers, right? This year, for Tariq Skubal, he has made 5 starts. Now, only 2 of them have been caught by Jake Rogers. Now, in those 2 games, his ERA did balloon. Although one of those games, he gave up like 4 runs, but really only 1 run should have been his fault. But, they don't know they don't know what an error is anymore, so there's also that. But the point still stands. Like last year, Jake Rogers caught every single Tariq Skubal start. right? Like there's I feel like there might be something to it, although Jake Rogers really can't hit to save his life. But then like you look at Schoolball's 2023 numbers, Rogers caught 12 of his 15 starts as well, right? So maybe it's maybe it could be a catcher familiarity. Maybe catcher familiarity could be playing into it with Houck, right? I'm
Right.
not saying it is. I'm not saying it is or isn't, but like that could be a thing because he pitched the best last year with 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 Reese McGuire behind the plate. His best start this year, funnily enough, you can make the argument his best start came with Blake Sable behind the plate.
Right.
So
And
funnily enough for Houck, Wong has only caught one of his starts. Sable caught caught one, and then Narvaez has caught 3 of them.
here's the other thing too. The sweeper. I'm just on Statcast. Sorry, on Savant. A lot of his pitch arsenal is the same. He's been throwing the 4-seam a lot more this year. Last year he only threw it 3 times. This year, almost 30, which is kind of weird, but whatever. Sweeper, he's only last year was 41% of the time. This year's 36. Sinker and splitter are about the same as they were last year. Not
Well,
really.
the issue is his sinker is getting hit this year.
His
That's the
sinker
issue.
is his worst pitch. A 333 batting average.
Well, here's the thing. Last year, his sinker had a 271 batting average against a 327 slug, but the expected batting average was 320 and the expected slug was 453, right?
Exactly. And he's not. Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. He's gotten a little bit unlucky this year in terms of like his sweeper, 270 average against, 486 slug against. Expected batting average is only 220. Expected slug is only 372, right? So he has gotten somewhat unlucky, right? And so you could very well make the argument that has he been a little bit unlucky in that sense? Yes. But his sinker getting hit is not good. Because if his sinker's getting hit, he really, really turns into a one-pitch pitcher. Really does turn into a one-pitch pitcher, especially against right-handed hitters where he doesn't really use his splitter, right? He really becomes a one-pitch pitcher. But I think the big issue though is I wonder because if his sinker's getting hit, right? And I remember seeing a thing too where it's like Houck's pitches, they're all like at least above average against right-handed pitchers, but against lefties, they're all below average. Like that's also another thing to really like take into account as well. So far this year, right-handed hitters are hitting 250 against Houck with a 96 OPS plus. Lefties are hitting 360 with an 1128 OPS and a 208 OPS plus. Lefties are killing him, right? That is an issue. That's an absolute issue. Lefties are killing Houck, right? And we looked, and the other thing too is Houck needs a start where he can get on track. His next start is slated right now to be against Cleveland. That's interesting. You look at Cleveland's lineup. The lineup they're going to roll with likely against Houck. Going to have Steven Kwan, Nolan Jones, Jose Ramirez, Kyle Manzardo, Carlos Santana, Angel Martinez, Bo Naylor, Brian Rocchio. All those guys, except for Gabriel Arias, are either lefties or switch hitters.
Yep.
Houck's going to be in for one, potentially. He might be in for one. And in all honesty, too, Daniel Schneerman, he's a left-handed hitter on their bench. He could play second base instead of Arias. Cleveland could have all lefties against Houck.
They might do that.
Between lefties and switch hitters, they might have all lefties in that lineup. They only have 4 right-handed hitters on their team. One's Gabriel Arias, who plays pretty much every day. One's John Kenzie Noel. One's Lane Thomas. And then the other is Austin Hedges, right? Like, let's be honest here. They can very well just throw all left-handed hitters. And the thing is, all their best hitters are either lefties or switch hitters. So when you look at that lineup for Tanner Houck, that's a nightmare lineup. If he were to start against Seattle, instead of Cleveland, right? That it's a little bit of a better matchup. Yeah, Jorge Polanco is a switch hitter. Cal Raleigh's a switch hitter. He's a Red Sox killer. But yeah, they have Luke Raley. Yes, they have Rowdy Tellez. Yes, they have Miles Mastrobuoni. But That's not as scary, in my opinion. Like, it's not as scary. J.P. Crawford has not been off to a good start at the plate. I know he's actually been off to a solid start at the plate this year, but it's nothing crazy, right? Now, obviously, the Red Sox are going to totally change around their, rotation to make sure Houck gets a little bit of a better opponent to start against. But it is interesting because Crochet's slated to start Thursday against the Mariners. Crochet against that Cleveland lineup wouldn't be fair because Cleveland would just be, they're very lefty heavy. Yes, they do get saved by the fact J Ram and Carlos Santana are both switch hitters. But Quan, instead of playing Nolan Jones, they'd probably have to play like.
I thought Crochet was started against
Seattle.
the Mariners.
Yes, he is. That's what I'm saying. Crochet has the last game against Seattle. Houck has the first game against Cleveland.
Right.
But with Bayo sliding in, plus
well, you also got to remember that they right now they only have 4 starters.
No, I know. Bayo slides in, right? So they lose a potential bullpen game. They lose the bullpen game and said they're just going to slot Bayo into where the bullpen game was. Obviously, they're not going to do it, but it is interesting just to see the fact that, like, obviously Houck can't go on Thursday. I'm not saying he can, but, like, if, like, somehow, like, the opponents were flip-flopped, right, and they played Cleveland first and then Seattle, like, it's almost like Houck could have, like, a slightly better matchup. They're not going to pitch Houck on Thursday, but, like, I'm saying if somehow they could have Houck pitch on Thursday, it'd be a little bit of a better matchup. They're not going to risk Houck by doing that, But that Cleveland start for Houck could be very scary. Could be very, very scary for him because that lineup's going to be loaded with left-handed hitters. Cleveland might legitimately, until the Red Sox get to the bullpen, might not have anyone step into the right-handed batter's box. They might not. And if I was Cleveland, I wouldn't have anyone step into the right-handed.
So what you're saying is if you're the Red Sox, you should start with an opener.
No, because Cleveland's going to know that you're going to put Houck out there. So
we'll have him start with the bottom of the whatever.
But still, the point still stands.
I know.
Houck might be in some trouble against Cleveland. And honestly, it's going to be a similar thing with Buehler for Cleveland because Buehler is a righty, so they are gonna play a lot of their lefties. And then Newcomb obviously being a lefty, that's gonna actually no, sorry. Bayo's gonna go before Newcomb. So Cleveland's facing 3 righties. It would be hilarious if Cleveland just every game just threw out all lefties and switch hitters. It's not gonna happen. They will get a couple righties in there. Like Arias is gonna play definitely, but there's gonna be a lot of left-handed hitters the Red Sox are facing in that series. Which then brings up another point: is the lefties in the bullpen are gonna have to be good, right? Bernardino's going to have to be good. Justin Wilson's going to have to be good. And Aroldis Chapman, who's been good, so really good so far, is going to have to continue to be good, right? Mm-hmm. That series is going to be big on the lefties in the bullpen, as well. So, and even the Seattle series in some sense too, right? Because Cal Raleigh, Cal Raleigh's better. I feel like at least he kills the Red Sox whenever he hits left-handed. So. But I feel like
it wouldn't matter. Yeah, he's a Red Sox killer. So
yeah. Well, the Mariners just is there with Cal Raleigh and like Rowdy Tellez, like they're trying to build the Avengers of beating the Red Sox. But last year Tellez was better as a left-handed hitter. So Raleigh was better as a left-handed hitter. So like the lefties are gonna have to be big in that series because you have Jorge Polanco, Cal Raleigh, and then if they're playing the lefties, you got like Luke Raley, Tellez, Mastroboni, that's J.P. Crawford, right? Because Polanco's also a switch hitter as well. But so the lefties are going to have to be bigger than the bullpen this week. That's definitely the case. Because I'll just run through the starters real quick. The Red Sox have Bayo, Newcomb, Crochet, and then Houck, Buehler, and then Bayo for the last game against Cleveland. So 6 games, nothing too crazy. But yeah, these are teams that the Red Sox are going to have to beat, considering that they're going to be fighting for a postseason spot, most likely.
Honestly, they might go with a bullpen game on Sunday or a spot start. Maybe to give Bayo an extra day or 2 days.
Maybe.
I'm not sure, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens there. I think it's a good time to predict. You did bring it up. So what do you got in the series, Derek?
Yeah. Well, I will also say Tanner Houck in that start against Cleveland. Take a guess who he's going up against.
I already
Just take
saw
a
it.
wild guess. Just take a guess.
Can I say it?
Yeah.
Ben Lively.
Well, when Tanner Houck pitched against Cleveland last year, who pitched for Cleveland?
Ben Lively.
Uh-huh. And what did Houck do in that game?
Complete game shutout.
Complete game shutout, hour 50 minutes, nice and easy. I would love to see that happen again.
But it's
Do
at
I think it?
Cleveland though, so
But it's probably not going to happen though. Let's be honest. Also that hour 50 game was amazing. Oh, also too, just bring up the point with Bayo. They could recall Dobbins. If like an injury happens, right?
yeah.
So if someone gets injured, they could recall Dobbins.
Phantom
Or if
IL.
it's yeah, they could yeah. Or like I would Stocks 15 days be up by then? Maybe they could re-add him to the 40 and then if something happens because they have an open 40-man spot, but
They do.
so that is an option. That is an option. I'm just bringing that up. But I think this week I kind of I'm gonna go with 4-2. Like a part of me wants to say 3-3, but I think they're gonna get 4 across this week. They're facing Bryce Miller, Emerson Hancock, and then Brian Wu for Seattle, and then Lively, Logan Allen, and Gavin Williams for Cleveland. So it's obviously in Seattle, if you can, they get to avoid Gilbert, Castillo, and then George Kirby, who's on the injured list, right? So you arguably are avoiding Seattle's 3 best pitchers, one of them because he's on the injured list, and then the other 2 because they're not starting in the series. Although Miller and Wu are still very good, don't get me wrong. They are still very good. And then in Cleveland, you're facing Lively, Allen, and then, yes, Gavin Williams, who have probably been their 3 best starters so far this year. But they are skipping out on BB, who is maybe due to have a good start, maybe a la Tanner Houck, who should be due to have a good start. Or at least you would hope. It's interesting, but I'm going 4-2. I think the fact that they're not facing Castillo this series, the fact they're not facing Logan Gilbert, the fact that they're not facing George Kirby because he's injured, they're avoiding Seattle's 3 best pitchers. So I'm going to go with 4-2.
I also got 4-2. I think they lose. That Tanner Houck start is a loss. I mean, not an automatic loss, but it screams, oh no, get ready, buckle up, could be a long one. And I think they either lose Tuesday or Wednesday. I think they nail the Crochet start, then Bueller and Bay, the Saturday and Sunday game. I think they'll be fine. So 4-2.
Yeah, I
We're on
think
the
they're
same
losing
page this week.
I think they're losing the Houck start, and then I think they lose one of the Bayo starts.
Yes.
So
I'm
they
with
would
you
win
on
the
that.
Newcomb start, win the Bueller start, win the Crochet start, and then lose. So in that case, they could have both their losses could come against Cleveland, or they could win both series 2-1, 2-1.
Yeah. So it is time for the lull moment of the week. Derek, take it away.
All right. So this past week, we're going over to Japan because something very interesting happened. Basically, in Japan this week, there was a combined no-hitter. Seibu's Tetsuya Imai and Kai Matira combined for the first double unofficial no-hitter since 1964. And what I mean by double unofficial? 2 reasons. Due to NPB rules, combined no-hitters do not count as no-hitters, and a no-hitter in which a run is given up also does not count as a no-hitter. And there's a reason for that, which I'll get into in a second. Imai threw 8 innings, and then Tyra, who has shifted back to a bullpen role after having a breakout season as a starter a couple years ago, but then having an injury. He's a guy who's expressed interest in coming over to Major League Baseball, but he's 25 now, so he could very well come over. But he's back in a bullpen role, not as a starter. So it'll be interesting to monitor that. I will say though, so 8 innings from Amai, and then Tyra with a perfect 9th inning, but it does not count as an official no hitter. Like I said, because they do not consider combined no hitters a no hitter, and then also 2, they gave up a run, so it's not considered a no hitter because in Japan, rather than calling it a no hitter, it translates to no hit, no run. What they call it, it translates to no hit, no run, and because a run was given up, it does not count as a no hitter. It's actually happened where there was a combined perfect game in Japan in the playoffs, I think, but it didn't count because it was combined. So kind of a low moment of the week. Your team throws a no hitter. I remember Irvin Santana threw like a 1-run no hitter as well back in the day. But it was but it wasn't. But it was a but he gave up a run. And the one unearned run came on a pass ball, which is hilarious. Shout out to Irvin Santana because that's the one that pops in my head every single time there's a no hitter while a run scores. But it was but yeah, I think that was kind of the interesting thing that happened this week, and it's kind of a low moment because you throw a no hitter, it's like, oh, we didn't give him a hit, but it doesn't even count for anything. It doesn't get recognized at all. So, a bit of an interesting one, and like I said, it's a double unofficial no hitter because it was not only a combined no hitter but also a run was scored. So it's the third time in NPB history a team threw a combined no hitter while giving up a run. And like I said, the first since 1964. So a long time ago. But that is your lull moment of the week.
Thank you, Derek. So for Derek and his lull moment of the week, I'm Jason. Thank you for tuning into the Fenway Focus, and we'll see you in the next one. Go Sox.